Here's one of the best habitat improvements that you can implement on your property to create more predictable buck activity and buck movement while you're hunting this fall. Now, if you followed my channel for a while, you know that I am a massive fan of running a chainsaw, but there's always a plan, there's always a purpose behind the cutting that I'm doing out on our hunting property. So you can see in an area like this, done plenty of chainsaw work. The cover's back in the deer's face and they respond. They use areas like this in the fall. Deer need high stem count security cover during those highest hunting pressure times. The biggest thing an area like this does is create predictable doe bedding on the property. I know spots like this are where the does are going to want to bed in the fall. So knowing that the deer are going to be here, I can plan accordingly when I'm setting up my hunting strategy for the fall. Now, it's not just creating bedding, but it's linking up multiple bedding areas to create a predictable line of movement. So when I cut in a bedding area like this, I have main travel corridors that feed, here's one of them, feed out of these bedding areas into other bedding areas further down the property. So I got multiple bedding areas that way, I got multiple bedding areas that way, and I have a very predictable line of movement linking up all these spots. So because I have predictable line of movement, I know where the does are going to be, I can have multiple ambush spots set up between these bedding areas to try and catch my cruising bucks in the fall. So there's my travel corridor coming out of the bedding down in there, and along the corridors I have plenty of these set up. These are those vines that bucks hone in on during their cruising time during the rut. So I have extra incentive for that buck to be on my trail and hit this vine. You can see there was an old scrape that it just made a massive scrape right here because of that vine. And then I got one of my ambush locations right there. So bedding, travel corridor, vine, deer stand, more bedding down the hill, linking up all these habitat improvements to create one predictable line of movement. Now, I just came out of that area. That was the bedding cut I was in. You can see it's thick, dense cover all the way through there. So predictable doe bedding. I know that's where the does are going to want to be. Got a travel corridor, the main corridor cut in right here. See the tracks on it. Cuts out right through there. So one main run coming right through the chute here. The woods gets narrow right here, so it's just a natural bottleneck, natural pinch. I got my bow stand right up there. Got a trail coming up actually out of the bottom right here as well. Doubles as a four-wheeler trail, but the deer use it. And then the main corridor kicking out this way. And on that corridor, you can see I got a vine. So again, bedding, main run, and then what do we jump into? More bedding up the hill. So I'm telling the deer where I want them to bed, in particular the does. But when I know where they're going to bed, it creates a much stronger situation from an access standpoint. I know how not to bump the deer, and it creates that predictable line of movement. So stacking doe bedding on doe bedding is what I'm trying to do here. Now, we hear a lot of times guys talking about trying to create buck bedding. The more and more we learn about buck bedding, you know, bucks bed in a multitude of different areas for a multitude of different reasons, and each time of year is different as far as where they're going to want to bed. So it's really tough to create predictable buck bedding, but it's very, very easy to create predictable doe bedding. A lot of times when you have bedding that's close to food, it's going to set up as doe bedding. All these spots are fairly close to to food. So I know they're going to set up well for doe bedding, and that makes this area really easy to hunt during the rut, because I know where the does are at, so I know where the bucks are going to want to be. All right, so again, further down this line of movement, I was just over there. What do I have? Main Travelway, ample doe bedding, and a food source right up over the hill. I know that's where the does are going to want to hang out because I created that area and I told the deer to bed there. And what can I do? Deer stand right there. I can sit the downwind side of all this doe bedding and ambush them as they're running right on the corridor. Got my vine right there. You can see this is heavily used this fall as a main runway through here. But again, I created a predictable line of movement, and I did the cutting that was necessary on the property to make sure that our property actually held deer, and that we held deer where I told them to bed. So it's not just random bedding and I'm having to guess where they're going to be. I know exactly where the deer are going to be on our property when I go hunting. And I'll highlight one last spot along this whole line of movement. So what do I have in here? This was my natural bedding area. So it's good native shrubs in here. I came in, killed out the buckthorn, created a very nice travel corridor that cuts through here, coming out of the bedding I was just in over that direction. So again, it's all linked up, basically making one big half circle line of movement throughout the entire farm. But I mean, I've seen it on cameras where bucks will cruise, because this goes, I got bedding cover all the way throughout the farm heading that direction, but I've seen bucks over there. They'll cruise this way and they'll end up on cameras way down over here. So they follow this line of movement because they know all this is doe bedding cover. They know where the girls are going to want to be, and they come through these areas. They're scent checking and they're looking for those estrus does. So linking up your bedding areas, creating that almost circular line of movement throughout your property works, because it makes for predictable bedding, predictable hunting, and stellar stand locations during the rut. And I got another stand right up on the other side of that spruce tree right there. So super fun to set these up. So if you don't have predictable movement on your property, bust out the saw, get at it, and start to create this, because this can be the game changer for you during the hunting season. All right, y'all take care. God bless.